Hello guys, welcome to this tutorial on how to set up an elevator inside one of our free buildings available for download on dcl.digital. This is going to be a quick implementation of the asset that comes along with the building in the download file, and we are talking about the elevator asset specifically. There is also a door asset that comes with it, but I will cover that in a separate video. Let's just have a look on how that elevator is supposed to work. Of course, you can use the same techniques and tools for other buildings, other assets you might create in Blender or purchase on our site or download for free. This is just like an introductory video on how to use the toolbox inside the Decentraland Builder tool. So let's have a look on how this works in game. So basically here we have an implementation of the elevator where you can click on the ground floor, you move on to the first floor where we delay for 1 second, and then we move on to the second floor where we eventually stop. In order for the elevator to go back down, you need to click again on the floor, and you will just move vertically back down to the original position. This is it. Like, we want to replicate the exact same functionality here inside Decentraland, and we don't want to use any programming skills, no SDK. We really just want to use the basic builder tool that is available to us right here. If you click on Builder, you will be able to access that scene. Now let me quickly change the scene we are going to look at for this tutorial. Well, I'm not going to rebuild the whole scene right now, but what I will do is to show you a ready scene, and I will explain to you how the individual items have been put in there and how they have been set up. And I think this should be sufficient for you to replicate and to understand how this works. So what is happening here is that I have added the building. I have then added the asset for the elevator. You have a separate video on how to do that. Basically, you just click on the asset and it's automatically placed here at the center. But since we already have it in the scene, I will delete it. In order to make things move inside a scene, you need to set up the toolbox. By clicking on it, it will be placed somewhere on the scene. What you will need to do is to move it out of the way by pulling on these arrows. If you click on Shift while pulling these arrows, it will really be a very smooth experience, so definitely try that out. Well, since we already have one toolbox placed, we will not need this one. What you need to know is that we are not going to use the toolbox item here any longer. It just needs to be somewhere on the scene to do its job. As a next step, we need to define a trigger, right? So we have that click area trigger here, which means that if someone clicks on that green surface area, some specific action will follow. And you can, click on it, you can move it around into any area you want to. You can scale it up in size, you can reduce it in size. So, you can basically define how large that click area will be. I have already set up one here just above the floor of the elevator, so that when you enter the elevator, you can click on the ground floor, hitting that particular click area and triggering an event that will allow us to move the asset vertically 6 units all the way to the first floor, and then another 6 units after a 1 second pause to the second floor. If we click on the actual object here, we will see how it is set up. So you can define that specific call to action that you can see inside Decentraland here. So we see interact, that is defined right here. Then when you basically click onto that surface area, you need to define what will happen next by clicking on the plus. So you add an action here and you select tools here. Usually it's already selected per default. And then you select the action that you want to happen. In this particular case, we're selecting move item because we want to move the elevator asset 6 units vertically upward. In this case, on the y-axis, I select 6. For the speed, I would recommend to use 3. And for this option, make sure it's set to relative, which basically means relative to its current position, move it 6 units on the y-axis vertically, right? If you don't select relative, this will actually mean something completely different. It will consider this to be a specific coordinate on your scene. I have never used this way of defining the location of an item, but I believe this is how it works. I find it much more useful to use the relative functionality, especially for elevators. So yeah, feel free to experiment with that stuff. I think this is a great way of doing it when you're just starting out. So the thing is, we have now defined the movement from the ground floor to the first floor, but we want the elevator to stop for at least a second on the first floor before moving up to the second floor. Now, of course, if you have an implementation where you have buttons, you might be able to define to which floor you actually want to go, to the first or to the second. Now, in this simple implementation, we just basically just want to quickly stop, have the opportunity to get off the elevator, and then move on all the way to the top. So you will need to add another action after the transition is finished, and this one will be called a delay. So we basically say just don't do anything for 1 second, right? And after that, hold on, I've changed that here accidentally. And after that 1 second, click on the plus again to add another action and select move item. Select the which item, and then move it another 6 units on the y-axis upward at a speed of 3, which will position us in the end right on the second floor. So what we are seeing now is actually that first step completed. Now the thing is, we also want to go back down. So in order to go back down, we need to create another clickable area here, because the other clickable area remained on the ground floor and it has not moved along with the elevator. Other implementations can actually move the clickable area along with the elevator. It's a little bit more complex, especially if you have buttons and more complex functionalities, you might want to do that. Now, in my case, I just created a second clickable area right here on the second floor. So when the elevator arrives to the second floor, you can reverse the exact same actions just into in a different direction. So let me show you how this was set up. I'm selecting the second clickable area. And now you will notice that we have the exact same setup as for the click area here at the bottom, but there is one tiny difference, is that on the y-axis we have put in the number -6, because the direction now is downward, and the same is true here, -6. So basically it's the exact same movement, just in the other direction. So you can just duplicate that click area by clicking that button here, duplicate item, move it. Let me just quickly do that, duplicate it, and then you just click shift and pull one of the arrows, just move it into position on top, and then amend these values here to -6 in 2 places. I will delete that for now because we already have Et voila, I think this is it. Once you click on update scene, publish, you should have a working elevator inside your building. Please let me know if there are any questions still open on that particular topic. Make sure to also watch the next video, which I'm about to record, on how to animate the door for the building. It works, in a very similar fashion, but it's great to have more than one example on how these things work. And I hope you have fun with your elevator. I hope you learn how to develop more complex functionalities inside Decentraland without programming. One thing before you leave that I would like to let you know is that when you have more than one player in your scene, what is very likely to happen is that you will have strange behaviors of these assets because of the way Decentraland is set up currently. Hopefully this will change in the future. For now, you can use these interactions just fine as long as it's you in the scene. When you have more than one person, they will misbehave. They will show up in different locations. Hopefully this is something that Decentraland will eventually tackle per default. If you are a developer and if you are a programmer, you might be able to custom code some of those available fixes for that with the SDK. But for now, I'm not aware of a solution within the regular Builder tool functionalities. But in the end of the day, this is just a really cool thing to use yourself when you are inside your building, or when somebody comes to visit. The situations where you have a whole lot of people coming in at the same time, they just are quite rare for now. So let's see how this develops. If I find out a smoother solution for that, I will definitely publish a video on that as soon as I know about it. Thank you guys. Have a nice day. Take care.